Bright colors, bold shapes, and clean design. My guest today blends traditional quilting with modern fabrics and a really approachable, confidence-building style. Her patterns are fun, often quick to make, and designed to help quilters feel capable and inspired. Today, I'll have a chat with Monika Henry of Penny Spool Quilts. Hello and welcome to the Quilter on Fire podcast. I'm Brandy Maslowski, a former firefighter turned quilt professional. As a quilt teacher, speaker, and judge, I travel the globe to bring quilters more joy and less overwhelm. Not too long ago, the quilty life I now lead was just a dream. After many lessons and a lot of hard work, I've transitioned from juggling a day job and a quilting business on the side to becoming a full-time quiltpreneur. I started the Quilter on Fire podcast to create a vibrant community of quilters, artists, and makers. Each episode brings you inspiring stories, insights, and the pure joy of guests from all over the world. If their stories uplift you and spark joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in and ignite that creative fire within you. What if quilting didn't have to feel complicated or intimidating? Today, I'm chatting with Monika Henry of Penny Spool Quilts, where bright colors, bold shapes, and simple fuss-free patterns help you build confidence one block at a time. Today, we'll talk about her Quilt the North Boxes, which are a fun way to bring beautiful regional-themed and Canadian-designed projects right to your doorstep. If you love traditional quilt patterns with bold, fresh fabrics, foundation paper piece block patterns, and printable tutorials, and you're ready to feel a little more ease and joy in your quilt making, this episode's for you. So let's explore the story of Monika Henry. Monika, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. This Quilt the North box thing has gone crazy and I'm having so much fun with it. But we are going to talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. We're going to feature it fully so everyone has all the details. But first, let's take a look back at where you got started. So when do you first remember putting stitch to fabric?
I grew up in Switzerland, and textile arts in general is on the curriculum for primary school there.
Oh, nice.
So we learned to crochet and knit and embroider and sew everything from about grade 2 onwards. So I don't remember the first thing I made, but it would have been around about when I was about 8 years old.
Were there certain people in your life that had a creative impact in your youth?
Mainly my mom. She's an artist. She's a porcelain painter and had her own studio for a long time teaching and painting. So that was mostly, and then of course all the art teachers and all that. But I remember like when we were little, Mom would take us to the zoo, and my brothers and I, all of us with sketch pads in hand, and we'd go and draw the animals.
Yeah.
Well, so that was fun.
I really love that it was just ingrained in the whole school system. And then also your mom was bringing it to you at home when you're doing adventures in the community and things like that. So can you bring us along the story to where quilting came into play? What was your first quilt like?
I didn't actually know what a quilt was until I was about 18. And I came to Canada as an exchange student. And all of a sudden, everybody had quilts and everybody's grandma made quilts, and I had never seen a quilt before. And I think at that time, some movie came out that had something to do with quilts, really featured quilts. I don't even remember which one it was, but all of a sudden I saw them and I was fascinated with the history behind it and the stories people put into their quilt blocks. And it was almost like discovering a new world of textile arts in a way.
Yeah.
And then went home sort of thinking, I would love to do that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your education, career path, and things like that. And then I want to still get into your first quilt.
I'm by training a geographer. I have a master's degree in geography and a teaching degree for high school. But I've never actually really worked in that field because I got my geography degree about 2 weeks before we moved to Singapore, my husband and I. And then when we came back, I finished up my teaching degree, and then we moved to Canada. And neither of those degrees were sort of, they are kind of recognized. The teaching degree isn't. I have to redo a whole lot of things here. The geography degree is technically recognized, but I was working towards urban planning, and that is a separate degree here in Canada, not geography. So it just kind of never worked out to really work in those fields.
So did you go from there into another career before you got into the quilting world?
No, when we moved here, I had a 9-month-old baby. So I figured I'd stay home for a little bit anyway, since that wasn't working. And then for a bit, I was working at the German embassy in Ottawa, because I spoke all the languages that they needed. And then when I had my second child, I quit that job. And then it turned out that they reorganized internally. And by the time I was ready to come back, that job didn't exist anymore anyways. So then I was pretty much stay at home for a bit, and then started working part-time at a local quilt shop.
Oh.
And kind of slid into quilting and quilting careers kind of by accident that way. So
that was kind of the beginning. Well, so you mentioned early on, before you were even 20, you were kind of bombarded with the realization that quilting exists. Now you're already into familyhood and having children, and you're starting to work at a quilt shop. So what hit you the most there that really got you hooked?
When I first saw quilts, there was nothing modern yet. They were all traditional quilts, and by the time I got into working here in a quilt shop, that was probably 10, 12 years later. In that time, the modern quilt movement had started up, and there were a lot more modern fabrics available, and they really spoke to me. So they kind of sucked me in.
Yeah.
And that way. Before, it was interesting. And when I was teaching myself to quilt, I was starting with traditional. But I was always drawn, looking back now at those quilts, I was drawn to the more modern fabrics and the bolder colors, but they weren't really available so much. And then once I started working in the shop here, I was surrounded by nothing but modern fabrics. And it was kind of like a kid in a candy store thing. So
was there kind of a defining moment when you kind of realized, okay, this is my thing. This is going to be the craft or the hobby that I do. But how did it start to transition into, I might be able to do this for a living?
Yeah, so I made my first quilt actually just a couple of years after I got home from that Canada year.
Okay.
My grandma saw an advertisement for a patchwork class at her local senior center where she was taking other classes, and they didn't have a minimum age limit. So it was me, 20 years old, I grabbed my mom's sewing machine. I attended that course with like 3 or 4 senior ladies, and it was a great course and an absolute hoot. And then after that, I felt ready to make a quilt, thinking, obviously now I know everything there is to know, as one does, And I made myself a quilt that was supposed to fit a twin size bed. And I had rulers with centimeters on it. The book that I was working off of was in inches. And I was trying to translate things. And somewhere in there, the whole math, I think, didn't work out. And I think I tried to add like drops on the side and pillow tucks and all those things. The quilt now fits on our king size bed. Let's put it that way. So it ended up taking me like 6 years to make, because I was in university. So I was working on it for a little bit, and then I was busy with projects and studying and whatnot. And then when we moved to Singapore, I didn't have a work permit. So my husband was transferred through his company. So he was working. I was sitting at home feeling sorry for myself. And so I used that same book to teach myself all the different block techniques in there. And there were a couple of quilt shops in Singapore, which was awesome, because that was the first time I'd seen a quilt shop. Back in Switzerland, we had fabric stores, which had like a section of cottons. but not necessarily like a quilting section.
Yeah.
And then after Singapore, we moved back to Switzerland. We had a baby. And by then, I was pretty much, this is my hobby. I like doing this, but I was doing very little at a time. Like, I had a baby. I made a small quilt here. And then someone in the family had a baby 6 months later. So I would work on a quilt, that kind of thing. And then by the time we moved here, but we moved here, there were lots of quilt stores all of a sudden. I had like 3 or 4 of them within a half-hour's drive of me. And the modern quilting had started up. So there was an actual modern quilt store that had all these, that's the one I ended up working at, that had all these fun fabrics and bright colors and more modern looking patterns and all that. And I started making and playing with quilts and playing with fabrics more so, and started like doing my own things and designing some of my own patterns. And then by the time I started working at the shop, I was pretty much drawing all my own patterns, as in on graph paper. Like I didn't write any instructions. I just knew what I meant by my drawings. And then a coworker of mine encouraged me to send one of those drawings in to Make Modern magazine.
Oh.
And I remember telling her, like, why would I? I'm not a pattern designer. They need pattern designers. They don't need like random nobodies like me sending them designs, sort of thing. And she kept kind of pestering me. Thankfully, she kept pestering me. And I ended up sending it in and they took it.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole pattern design actually started. So I had to learn pretty much in a hurry how to actually write the pattern so that other people could understand my drawings. And then I realized that this gets back to my roots of being a teacher. And this is a way of passing my joy with quilting and all that on to other people. And that was the second time I was going to say hooked. Like the first time was like, oh, I really want to make these things. And then the second time around was like, oh, I can share this with other people. So
yeah,
long story, but this is how I got there.
Yeah, it's such a great story. It shows how you grew and changed with your quilting path over time, because you were just in it for the joy at first. And then that joy grew so much that you started to feel like, yeah, I could share this with other people and bring them the joy as well. And the pattern design blossomed from there. So let's take a moment out of the story and talk about, where are you living now in Canada, and who are your loved ones that you share your world with every day?
I live just outside of Ottawa in a small town. Actually, we live outside that small town on a little bit of land. And I live here with my husband and 2 teenage kids, a girl and a boy, and a cat and a dog and a flock of chickens.
And you've kind of settled there, right? You're not really going anywhere anytime soon?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
This is sort of our forever home.
Yeah, so nice.
Or at least that's the plan at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so let's get back into that wonderful conversation about design, because you're a pattern designer and you have all kinds of beautiful, colorful, joyful patterns on your website. So when you see something in the world that sparks an idea, how do you capture it? Are you still very much drawing out the design on paper, or do you do fully digital now, or do you just go straight to fabric and start throwing things on the wall?
I often still draw. It depends a little on how urgent the design idea is. Sometimes it's, oh, I really like that. Like, let me take a picture. And other times it's, oh, I see something in there. I think I could do this with it. Let me just sketch that out. Yeah. And then other ones, I will go to the computer because I already have an idea and I want to see how it works if I change a bunch of things. And that's easiest digitally because I'm not redrawing it for every iteration. Yeah. So it's a big mix of everything.
And where do you pull your color inspiration from?
Mostly just from, I look at the fabrics and I like certain color combinations and tend to kind of go back to the same ones all the time.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you worked at a quilt shop, right? Because you were surrounded by that every day. Do you still work at that quilt shop, or have you
No.
gravitated home and you've been working full time in your business?
Yes. Yeah. I stopped working there before the pandemic, actually.
Oh, okay.
And then we are self-employed generally. Like we run a family business. My husband took that over when we moved back here from his parents. And I was helping out there for a while. And then it was sort of the stepping stone between the fabric store and going full time with Penny Spool Quilts.
Well, let's go there. So the business is called Penny Spool Quilts. So tell us, how did you come up with the name?
That's a line from Pop Goes the Weasel.
Oh, okay.
It's a penny for a spool of thread, a penny for a needle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel.
Oh, that's
like there's
fun.
many verses in that children's rhyme, and one of them is this one.
Yeah, so fun. Okay, so tell us, what do you bring to the world with your business in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it's fun, bright, modern patterns that tend to look a little more complicated than they are to make. And I like them as fuss-free as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that at the beginning. I try to give people a pattern that they can make and feel like they've accomplished something that gives them more confidence in their own quilting abilities, and then something fun to look at the end, of course.
Yeah, and I just love that. I love that when there's a pattern there and you think, oh, that looks a little too tough for me, but it's laid out so beautifully in a way that it's really achievable, right? So that's a really nice thing to bring to the quilting community. So
that's my favorite quilts to make.
Yeah,
I don't like fussy, lots of tiny little pieces. That's not my style. So that I shy away from designing quilts that way as well.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so let's talk a bit about your website. Let's head over there and tell us what would be a good way for people to encounter your website. So what do you offer there?
I have a blog with tutorials on it. And also I showcase all the quilts I make. I talk about them and the sort of the decisions that went into making them. There's a pattern shop, for obvious reasons. And Quilt the North is on there.
Quilt the North is on there.
And I think that's pretty much it. It's blogs and blog tutorials, shop, and I teach. So there's a page there as well that outlines what I teach and how you can get me to teach for your guild or group or shop.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of wonderful stuff there. And the website is pennyspoolquilts.com. So you can go check it out. If you're listening to this podcast right now, I encourage you to go check it out. There's so many resources there. The blog has just all kinds of information. The tutorials are there. And then we're going to talk about Quilt the North, her latest venture, after the break. I'm so excited that you launched this. It's going really well. So we'll dive into all the details about that as well. But community is something that you really care about as well. So tell me why you felt the need for a product that really catered to Canadians.
That was more of an accident, to be honest. Well, an accident and political issues going on at the time. So that was around March, April-ish of 2025, with everything going on with President Trump, with the tariffs and attacking Canada and all those things. People were very feeling national pride and the whole elbows up movement and all that. And in that whole ecosystem, if you will, I came across a person asking in a Facebook group whether someone knew of a Canadian quilt subscription box that was project-based and not just a fabric subscription. Yeah. And they had previously bought American ones, but with the dollar exchange, it was getting expensive. And then with the whole tariff issue, they weren't sure whether they were going to get it across the border or not. So there were a lot of replies to that post, but almost all of them actually replied with fabric subscriptions, which is what this person didn't want. Yeah. And it turns out essentially that nobody was doing anything like that. They didn't exist. And that kind of stuck with me. I remember thinking, somebody should do that.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a need for that. And then I just left it sort of in the back of my head. And apparently it was marinating there or fermenting or whatever you want to call it. And one day I was driving home and I was sitting at the red light and all of a sudden had this like thought pop into my head out of the blue. I could do that. I'm somebody, I could do that. And it almost kind of scared me when I thought about it. And then I went down the rabbit hole thinking the whole drive home, I was thinking, oh, I could do this, or it would be fun if it was this way or that way. And by the time I got home, I was telling my husband about it and pretty much started thinking of ideas of how this could actually be a thing.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes, that's really a good demonstration of when you come up with an idea and there's just a lot of fear immediately, that might be exactly the right way to go because it's daring, right? It's doing something exciting that maybe not everyone's willing to do. So we're going to dive into that. I promise everyone we're going to dive into that in great detail after the break. But right now, let's get back to the website a little bit more because you have a wonderful newsletter there that people can sign up for on the website. It's called Weekly Threads. So what will we find there?
That one is a little bit of everything. I try to include 2 to 4 threads every week. Sometimes that's studio updates. That can be inspiration for the reader. It can be a roundup of certain patterns. So I've done like rainbow pattern roundups or teacher gifts to sew or things like that. It's anything new going on, tutorials, if I write something new, or of course, if I have a new pattern, I will talk about that. But it's kind of it's a general what's going on in my life, in my quilty life, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. And I think, so how does it work together? Like, is the newsletter separate from the blog, or do you put the blog stuff in the newsletter? How does that work together?
I feature blog stuff in the newsletter.
Okay.
Not everybody goes and tries to catch up with my newsletter with my blog every other day or every week or something. So if I have something new on the blog, I will put it in the newsletter and say, oh, by the way, this is now up there. And sometimes I will feature older blog posts because there's quite a lot of them on there by now. Yeah. And people don't always have seen them all. So,
so the blog is a way
to highlight them again.
Yeah, perfect. It's the blog's like a beautiful archive, and the newsletter is a way of keeping up with the latest and then learning about things you might have missed. I love it. Okay, so you have been featured, you mentioned earlier, in Make Modern magazine and all kinds of places. So tell us a little bit about 100 paper-pieced quilt blocks. That was a book you were featured in, right?
Yes, that was an interesting how that came about. I had just launched a series of FPP quilt blocks. They are all ice cream bars, popsicles, and just generally ice cream. 6 blocks of them. Had put them on my website, and I have an Etsy shop as well, so they went up there. And then I got an email through Etsy asking if I'd be interested in being part of this collaborative book that was all about FPP. And at first I thought that was a scam because it came out of the blue and through Etsy. It was not a weird way to approach me, but not they didn't email me. They sent the message through Etsy. Yeah. So I went and looked them up, and they are a legitimate publishing house in England. It's David and Charles. And so I said yes, and they sent me a list of the blocks that they would want to feature, and I got to pick out 10 of them to design and design and write the instructions for them, and then I sent those off to England, and that's where they've been living ever since.
Oh, that's really fun. And you mentioned to me earlier that they were mostly food, so you continued with the same theme.
Yes. Yeah, I ended up doing a lot of the food ones. There's an avocado and a donut and a whole tea set. And I think a breakfast egg, but the book itself has blocks all across sort of life. I just ended up picking the food ones for myself. Yeah, and there are 10 other designers contributed to that book. So that's how we got to have 100 blocks.
Yeah, that's so great. And we haven't talked much about foundation paper piecing yet. So how did you get involved in that? What first drew you to foundation paper piecing?
It was a quilt block, a a quilt idea I had that I couldn't do any other way. I had always resisted FPP a little bit because I hated pulling the paper out, and it was too fussy, too fiddly for what I like to do.
Yeah.
And then I had this paper star hanging on our window with like see-through paper.
Yeah.
And one morning I was looking at it and just kind of thought this would make an awesome quilt block. Just the way of because the papers overlap. So then you have different shades of similar colors and geometric shapes there, but it was not pieceable in any other way. So I kind of had to teach myself how to design foundation paper piecing because I wanted to make that particular block.
Yeah.
And it kind of took off from there after that. So
yeah, that's fun. So if people are interested in buying that book, is there a link somewhere on your website or something where they can figure it out?
There should be. There is a tab at the top that is, I believe, called About. And under there is a page where I'm featured in, and that lists all the books and magazines and interviews and things that I've been in over the years. And there should be a link to that book actually in there.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of wonderful links to Make Modern magazine and all the places. Modish Quilter. That was a great magazine. Remember that one? I loved that magazine. That was
was really nice, but it didn't exist for a whole lot of time. So
yeah. And then, there it is at the end there. So patterns featured in books, 100 paper piece quilt blocks, and then small blocks, big designs. So what did you put in that one?
That one was originally an FPP block, but they ended up making it into templates. Oh. And it's called Snowball Lace.
Oh, fun.
Because it's snowballed, but it ended up with a bit of a lacy look to it. So
yeah. Okay, and you have workshops and lectures as well. So what are some of your most popular workshops?
The popular one is Improv for Planners.
Oh, okay.
And that is for people like myself who get hives when they think about having to do improv.
That is so funny because I remember when I was learning improv early on from a very good friend of mine named Felicity, she came over to my table and she's like, "You are planning your improv. You need to stop it." So that's funny. So Improv for Planners, it sounds really good. Like someone who's a little bit fearful of improv, they still want to have that look, but yeah, that sounds great. Okay. And what else? What's your favorite thing to teach? If a guild called you up and was like, "We'd love to have you," what would be the first thing you offer?
Actually, that one. I love teaching that one because it's so fun to see people get over that internal barrier. Yeah. Or get over their reservations and actually jump in and start to not plan as much. It's still a very planned quilt. Yeah. But it's a little less planned than other quilts, and they start to play with colors a little more. They start to play with shapes a little more and not just follow the instructions strictly for this piece goes right here and must go right here. Yeah. And it's like seeing that epiphany by the end of the course it's my favorite thing. Yeah, that's fun. And of course, you offer foundation paper piecing as well and design your old quilt. There's a whole bunch of fun workshops, so I encourage you to check them out if you're listening right now. Let's talk about your lectures. You have a couple of those as well. One is about the improv again. I keep coming back to that one. It's my adventures as a planner doing improv. And the whole how this Improv for Planners came about is because I was wanting to do improv, but in a way that wasn't going to make me go, ugh. And so I've made a bunch of quilts now that I can actually show how it started and how I came from doing very planned quilts to doing this slightly more planned improv, but still improv. Yeah. And I've branched out a lot over the course of doing this. And then there is a scrappy lecture as well, because I do a lot of scrappy quilts, and a trunk show talking about where partly my journey in quilt making, partly the journey a thing of inspiration takes going through my brain, coming out the other end as a quilt pattern. So we talk about my inspiration and how I turn them into quilts and quilt patterns.
Yeah. So 3
think that's it.
wonderful lectures available for if you're listening right now and you are the program planner for your guild, you can always reach out through the website. So Monika, is there a quilt or quilt project that's been most memorable for you?
I think that would be Flocks of Color, because that was my first, that quilt pattern that my friend nudged me to send in to Make Modern. So that was my very first official pattern that I wrote, and it is now a multi-size, multi-color option quilt pattern. But it's still, it's the one that launched the whole business, really.
Yeah. And just guessing from the title, Flocks of Color, did it have something to do with flying geese?
Yes, it's a flying geese pattern.
That's what I thought.
A rainbow flying geese.
Oh,
at
nice.
That, so.
Okay, so in your creative practice, what brings you joy?
Just playing with fabric. And for myself, it's just playing and seeing what happens and seeing my ideas come to life. And in terms of designs, it's seeing other people do something with a design I made, but they do things with it that I would have never thought to do.
Yeah.
And I love that gives me inspiration again as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see how it would be so fun to see the direction that people go, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk all about Monika's studio space, some of the patterns and quilts, of course, and Quilt the North. We'll be right back. I want to share something with you that feels a little bit like opening a gift just for you. It's called the Quilt the North box. It's a beautifully created quilting box designed right here in Canada. What I love about it is how thoughtful it is. It's not just a bundle of products, it's an experience. You get a project to work on, carefully chosen items particular to a region in Canada, a local pattern designer, and a local artist. It's little surprises that make you feel connected across the nation. It reminds me of those moments when you just want to sit down, slow things down, and make something with your own hands without having to overthink it or gather all the pieces yourself. Everything is chosen for you, so you can just open the box and begin. If you've been craving a little inspiration or just want something joyful to arrive at your door, you can check out the Quilt the North box at quiltthenorth.ca. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. 2 things I want to say. The first thing is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. It means the world to me and my team, which consists of James, my podcast producer, DG, my virtual assistant, and Luna, my chocolate lab. This podcast really is a dream that started with the notion of surrounding myself with people who lift me up, but it has turned into so much more than that. We absolutely couldn't have imagined becoming an award-winning podcast. But secondly, we feel like we're only just getting started. And if you enjoy what we do here, please go to your favorite social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or even YouTube, and follow Quilter on Fire. It's one small thing you can do for free to support this show. And here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I'll do everything in my power to make this the best show I can, just for you. Thank you for listening. And we are back with Monika Henry of Penny Spool Quilts. Monika, tell us about your studio space.
It's our guest bedroom. But we have a Murphy bed in here, so most of the time I don't see that it's a bedroom and it's just my little space. Yeah, I have my sewing machine, I have my cutting table, I have my fabric shelves and all my sample quilts and a big design wall. And it's nice having, when we first built this house, we purposely built this as my sewing room. We always knew it was going to be also the guest bedroom because we have visitors coming from overseas because all my family are still there. But it was nice having a purpose-built room that I knew was going to be mine, and I wasn't trying to carve out a spot in a corner elsewhere, which I was doing in our old house.
Yeah, it's nice to have your own perfect space that you just love. I love that. So what's your favorite time of day?
Mid-morning and sort of mid-afternoon, I'd say.
That's when you're the most, I don't know, busiest. Your mind works best then?
I would say so. I'm not really a morning person. I'm forced to be a morning person because our school bus gets here early, so I have to be up.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a night owl anymore. I think I've gone beyond that by the time I reached 40. So now it's like middle of the morning and middle of the afternoon is,
Okay, and
that's my time now.
What's the best thing that you do for your own self-care?
Sewing, gardening, reading books, not being on someone else's clock.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Doing your own thing that you want to do.
Having time to just do what I want to do.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the projects, patterns, quilts. We've already touched on Flocks of Color because that was a meaningful one for you that started off your pattern design adventure. But tell us about some of your other most popular patterns. I'll list them off and you can tell me about them, okay? So the first one is Twisted Log Cabin. So that's a block pattern. Tell me about that one.
Yes, that's an FPP block, but it also exists in traditional piecing.
Oh, okay.
Because I have apparently a lot of people who like the looks of the pattern, but they don't like FPP. So it's literally what it says on the tin. It's a twisted log cabin. It's a log cabin set on point. And it was a prompt it was called Quilt Block Mania that I was taking part in. And it's a monthly challenge type thing where we were designing a quilt block each month to a prompt. And this one was tradition with a twist. And I just took that literally and I twisted my log cabin. Yeah. And that block has been a bestseller very unexpectedly. Yeah. It's either my best-selling or second best-selling block pattern.
Yeah, and I love that you have block patterns as well as full quilt patterns. And, because it's a block and you just make it over and over again, right?
Yes, so, and you can just use it for whatever you want. Yeah. I've had people send me pictures of cushions they've made with just a single block or entire quilts made with all of the blocks.
Yeah.
So.
And my favorite block pattern that I saw on your website is called Rainbow Star. So tell me about that one.
That is the one that started the FPP. That's the...
Started everything.
The star that was hanging on our window that I had to turn into fabric, and FPP was the only way to do it. So it is literally, again, I name my quilts what they look like. So it is the Rainbow Star.
Okay, so you have block patterns, you have printable tutorials, and you also have full quilt patterns. So let's talk about a printable tutorial. The one that caught my eye is Modern Braid.
Yeah, so printable tutorials are they are tutorials on my blog, usually photo tutorials, where I go through a technique. There isn't really necessarily like fabric requirements or anything like that in there. It's a technique tutorial that you do in your size, your fabrics, whatever. But not everybody wants to or is able to have a screen beside the sewing machine to look at the tutorial while they're working on it. So I made this option where it's condensed into more of a pattern format. It's not a full pattern. Again, it doesn't have the fabric requirements and like it doesn't say on the back, you have to go and buy this, and this. But it is, and it's graphics instead of photos. So it fits on less paper. So you can print this out and have it with you at retreat or in your sewing room, whatever. And you can still do this tutorial, but without the photos taking up space, without any ads in the blog posts, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so good. And there's another one that I loved called Scrappy Love, and that's a full quilt, right?
Yes. And the full quilt patterns are what you would expect from a full quilt pattern. So that's the whole shebang.
Yeah, I love it. And there's one other thing I want to talk about that I saw on the website, and that's the Alphabet series. So that's full quilt. So tell us a little bit about how that came about.
That was started with a Christmas card we got that had peace, love, quilt, joy. What is the fourth one?
Hope, peace. Yeah, hope. Yeah, hope,
Thanks.
Peace, love, joy. Yeah, right.
Hope, peace, love, joy written on the Christmas card.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it thinking, oh, I I've always kind of wanted to or wondered about doing something with letters, but I've never designed a letter or an alphabet before. And then I played with it a little bit, didn't like it, put it away. And it was, again, things take turns in my brain. They sit, they develop. And eventually, I don't know what made it come back, but all of a sudden I thought, oh, I have an idea. And I started working on an alphabet. And now it looks quite different, actually, from the card, from the font on the card. But I made a quilt called Holiday Spirit, which is those 4 words and star blocks in a very blocky, modern, and also very simple to make alphabet. A lot of alphabets are FPP or curved piecing or things more beginner-ish quilters tend to shy away from. And I wanted to make something that is super easy, even for an almost beginner. I would say you have to still know how to like stitch and flip corners, that sort of thing, but it's only a step up from beginning.
Yeah.
And so I made this pattern that has hope, love, peace, and joy on it, which does not use the entire alphabet to write those 4 words.
Right.
And as soon as I launched it, I got emails from people saying, oh, do you have the other letters too? And of course I didn't. So then I thought, well, you know what? Why not just design the whole alphabet and make it a separate pattern? So Holiday Spirit is a quilt, a throw quilt with those 4 words on it. You can use the letters by themselves if you want. Like they're all designed in like a sampler format. So each letter has its own cutting instructions and its own piecing instructions. So you're not like taking an entire quilt pattern apart just to find out which bit goes where.
Yeah.
But I thought, let's just design a actual quilter's toolbox, a quilter's alphabet that you can use for anything you want to put words on.
Yeah.
So that's when Elemento Quilt came along.
Yeah.
And I called it that because it's elements, partly. It's elements for your quilt, but also the way, when kids sing the alphabet song and they think there's an Elemento P in there?
Yeah, exactly.
That was in there as well. So
great. So you've got all kinds of holidays. You've got holidays, Halloween, Valentine, but then you also have the full alphabet sampler pattern. So you can pick and choose which letters you want to use. Love it.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. And it's so great that you're going to your audience and listening to what they need and then, coming up with something. Whoops.
Yeah. So the Elemento Quilt kind of was then the whole alphabet. And then I started the Valentine's one, the Halloween table runner, they all have their own little blocks that go with them. So the Halloween runner has a little ghost with it. Aww. The Valentine's one has a heart that goes with it. But the blocks are rather big. Yeah. They're 10-inch blocks. And I've had people say that they would love to use them, but they're too big for their project. So then I shrunk them. And now I have one more pattern called Party Bunting.
Wow.
That is the same alphabet, but 5-inch blocks.
Oh, wow.
And instructions to make buntings. So happy birthday. Congratulations. Yeah. Welcome. Nice. Happy Canada Day, whatever you want to put on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And so you're talking about like flags or,
yes. Yeah. Like the strings of flags. Yeah.
Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Okay. Wonderful. So what a good idea to listen to your audience and make something that they can really use. Okay. So we have been waiting for this, the big news. You created Quilt the North. So you already shared the story of how this accidentally came about. So let's get into how you roll it out. So how often do you release them?
It's a quarterly box.
Okay.
So there's 4 boxes a year, every 3 months.
And the first featured designer was Leanne Parsons. She is the devoted quilter on Instagram. And of course, I featured her on the podcast. So that was episode 249. So be sure to go back and check that out. That was a wonderful interview. So let's get back to the box and talk about what's inside.
Yeah. So the aim with the box for me is to introduce or show off Canadian talent. So each box features one featured designer like Leanne, and this designer designs a pattern that is exclusive to the box. And then I put in all the fabric to make it. So it's usually a small project, so we can completely finish it, not just a quilt top. And then the rest of the box is themed around where the designer lives. So I'm taking you along on a bit of a trip across Canada while also introducing you to Canadian quilt pattern designers that you may know, may not realize that they're Canadian, or you might have never heard of them.
Yeah. Well, I had so much fun with that first box with Leanne because there was a beautiful pattern. There was fabric. It was like a kit. There was the bio of the designer. And it was like a location bio also with like tips from the designer on maybe what to do if you live there, if you go visit there, things like that. And then there was also some other little treats and souvenirs and things like that from a local artist, right?
I don't like using the word souvenir because it has a bit of a cheap sound to it.
Yeah.
But it is what I'm trying to put in there. It is a souvenir, but I work with local small businesses to find something that is either a local specialty or just something that represents the location for that box. And that's how we put things in there.
Yeah, and I totally hear you. It's not like some little piece of junk just added in for, to fill. It's actually a beautiful artist designed thing that is really something you do want to keep as a souvenir, right? Okay, so all Canadian products, that's really exciting. Let's talk a little bit about how do we get involved in buying this or getting a subscription?
You can just go to quiltthenorth.ca. It forwards you to my website. Yeah. But it forwards you straight to the Quilt the North bit of my website. And you can read all about it. There's FAQs about all the details, how it's set up, how you can subscribe, how it works when it comes out. And then, yes, you can either subscribe and pay quarterly. So each time a box comes out, your payment method will get charged, or you can sign up ahead of time for a 6-monthly or a 1-year subscription.
Oh, great.
So then you get 2 boxes not at the time, but the next 2 boxes before you pay again, or you get the next 4 boxes before you get charged again.
So. Okay. And it ships internationally as well, right? It's not only for Canadians.
Yeah. Shipping's included in Canada. International is in addition.
A little bit extra.
But yes, I do ship all across the world. Thank you.
Yeah, we have friends all over the world. Okay. So this podcast episode you're listening to right now airs in April. So just to give you an idea of the timeline, the next Quilt the North box is the June box, and sales close for that on May 10th. Or you can subscribe for the entire year so you don't miss a thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay, sounds good. So there will definitely be a link in the show notes, and I'll have it all over my social media. Look for the moose in my Facebook or Instagram feeds. And of course, you can go to Quilt the North on Instagram as well. So let's talk a little bit about some of the designers you've had in the past. So we mentioned that Leanne Parsons was first in September of 2025. And we didn't actually mention the project, but it's a cute little quilt called Bright Side Up. I'm really excited because in the future, I'm planning to make it together with her on my YouTube channel. So that'll be fun. But you also had a few other designers since then. So tell me about Karen Neary.
Yes, Karen is from Amherst, Nova Scotia. And her style or her favorite block are like the New York Beauty type quilts. So she designed a small quilt called Polaris, which is part FPP, part regular piecing. And it has that sort of New York Beauty woven in, but still it looks quite modern.
So Karen's box came out in December 2025. And then the next one in March was Hillary Cooper. So tell me about that one.
Yeah, so for that one, we went clear across the country because Hillary's from Vancouver. Yeah. And she designed a pattern that is all traditional piecing, but with curves, and it kind of evokes, she called it Pacific waves. So it evokes the forest, the mountains, the ocean a little bit, but without being like super sort of the whole, basically I want, and that's what I tell my designers, I want to showcase their normal style, like their specific style, how they design patterns, what they normally look like, and not have them do something all Canadiana with like, moose and beavers and maple syrup kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's not that, but they do take inspiration. Karen with the North Star and Hillary with the Pacific Waves, they do take inspiration from their location or from Canada, that sort of thing. Yeah. But it shows off their actual specific style of pattern writing.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of gives us an idea of the first 3 designers and patterns that came out. Now, can we talk about the next pattern designer coming up? I know it's going to be a surprise, but can we get a sneak peek at who's coming up for the June box?
We can have a wee sneak peek.
Okay.
Depending on when exactly this airs and when exactly we say who's going to be in it. I'm not 100% sure of the dates yet, so you might actually already know, but we're going back to the other coast and to a bigger city.
Like Toronto or something?
Oh, no. Completely clear across the country.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Halifax.
Oh, Halifax. Okay.
This time. So if you know of a pattern designer from Halifax, you can start to think about who that might be.
Yeah, you might be able to guess. Okay, so that's a surprise. So that's the June box coming out in 2026. Yes. Like I said earlier, the sales for that end on May 10th. So you want to go to the Quilt the North website and check that out. So more wonderful designers are also to come. You have it scheduled out for a year, 2 years to come, actually, right?
I have, So, until the end of 2027, I have people who have said that they would love to contribute a pattern and show off what they do.
Yeah, wonderful. So you're going to be featuring regions all across Canada, designers all across Canada. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So if this is the first you've heard of this, I really encourage you to go and check out the Instagram and then, of course, check out the website and perhaps buy your first box. That'll be so much fun.
I know.
Okay, so back to Penny Spool Quilts. Monika, what is on your design wall right now?
Right now, there is a secret project that I can't reveal yet. And that's pretty much it right now.
Secret project. Okay, we won't talk about it.
On the actual design wall, there's the secret project. And then there's my mental design wall has a few scrappy ideas that I want to play with that I haven't had the chance yet to pull out because I've been working on the secret project.
Oh, that sounds fun. So now it's time for the lightning round robin. It's a series of rapid fire questions and it's super fun. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, Monika, what is your favorite tool or notion?
I don't know if I have a favorite one. I don't do a lot of notions.
Okay.
Or tools. I'm a very minimal quilter. So I have my couple of rulers that I like and my rotary cutter. One thing I did pick up very spur of the moment that I'm super happy about is thread snips by LDH Scissors.
Oh, yes. Those are so nice.
Those were unplanned, but get used almost daily now.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's very minimal around here.
Yeah, those little snips are nice to have beside the machine. Okay, so what triggers inspiration for you?
Anything and everything.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Usually at a very inopportune moment.
Yeah, of course. How many UFOs do you have going on at once in your studio?
Anywhere from 1 to about 5.
Oh, that's pretty good. I have dozens. I should really get
I like
that
to finish things and get them out of the way.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
But I do have multiple projects on the go, usually.
Okay, what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning?
My alarm clock.
That is all. Your alarm clock.
Yeah.
What is a skill you'd love to learn?
I would like to improve my drawing, actually.
Yeah, that's a good life skill to improve. Yeah. Okay. Has there been a mentor who's really influenced you along your journey?
I'd say my mom, actually. She's been, pretty much everybody I've ever come to with ideas has been encouraging. Mm-hmm. So my husband, my parents, my in-laws, my friends, but sort of as a role model, I'd say my mom, because she ran her own business for a long time. And I grew up seeing that as a role model. Or modeled for me. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you have any favorite collections of any kind in your home?
I have a collection of travel posters.
Oh.
Those antique looking ones. Most of them are postcards, but I do have a few that are actually poster size. And they are hung upstairs in the hallway. in a big arrangement.
Oh, that's kind of fun. I had a guest in the past who collected travel posters and made them into quilts. Vicky Conley. They were the posters of
fun.
They were the posters of the national parks.
And that type of poster. I used to pick them up wherever I traveled.
Yeah.
Instead of like your standard souvenirs, I would look for old posters for that region.
Oh,
and
that's
usually
fun.
Postcard sized, but
yeah, that's fun. I can just imagine it as a beautiful vignette in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is your proudest accomplishment?
Raising my kids.
Pretty good accomplishment.
Seeing them turn out the way they have. They're fun teenagers / young adults.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Aww.
And then if we're strictly business quilty, then I would say just getting my business to where it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big milestone just to launch the box, never mind have it be successful and continue on, right? Yeah.
It's a bit like launching kids.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any furry friends in your studio?
Furry friends?
Yeah.
Yes, a cat and a dog.
Aw. What are their names?
The cat is Simo, and the dog, his name is Coach.
Aw, cute.
And he's a Velcro dog who is currently whining outside the door because he wants to be in the room with me. But his nails on the hardwood floor would make for an interesting background noise.
Yeah, I often have to have Luna in the background. If my husband's traveling, she'll just snooze here. But every once in a while, she has a dream. And then she's making little fun sounds in the middle of a podcast. But okay, well, that was really fun. Thank you for braving the lightning round robin. So we've mentioned your website a couple times, Penny Spool Quilts with an S. Okay, I'll say that again. So I've mentioned your website a couple times at pennyspoolquilts.com. And we've also got quiltthenorth.ca. They kind of go to one another, right? So if you go to Quilt the North, you'll go to Penny Spool, but you'll find everything there. And that's everything we've talked about today. But where's the best place for everyone to connect with you on social media?
I'm just on Facebook and on Instagram. So for Penny Spool Quilts, that's at Penny Spool Quilts. And Quilt the North has its own Instagram and Facebook page under Quilt the North, all one word.
Okay, that's easy to find. Now, as we wrap up, Monika, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation today?
I'd say you never really know where life's going to take you.
Yeah, that's really good because you got this sudden idea off of the internet where someone was interested in a product that lingered around in your head for a while. And then suddenly you were just driving in a car and you thought, okay, I can do this, right? So that is a great little bit of advice. It's not even advice. It's just like, you never know where life will take you. It might be that fearful thing. Remember, it gave you so much fear. It might be that fearful thing that's kind of just keeps coming back and niggling your mind. Yeah. And then suddenly
people often say, oh, you have to be open to possibilities. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that makes it sound more like you have to be searching for the possibilities. Mm-hmm. But things sometimes find you. You just have to, keep your eyes open.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to listen.
And not miss them.
Yeah.
Or not dismiss them, I suppose.
Yeah, you have to listen. Okay, Monika, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. What a great way to end the show. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So that was my show with Monika Henry. I love Monika's pattern designs, so I really encourage you to visit her website to go have a gander. One thing that delighted me from today's episode was her story of creating a Canadian quilt box at a time when the nation really needed it, and we still do. It's so great to come together to feature Canadian designers, artists, and areas of Canada. I really want to book more travel to the East Coast now that I've got the first box, and I loved this conversation with Monika. There's something so refreshing about her approach, simple, bright, and full of encouragement in all of her patterns. Be sure to follow her on Instagram at both Penny Spool Quilts and Quilt the North to hear the latest on when the next Quilt the North box is dropping, so you don't miss a thing. And today, I loved sharing the story of Monika Henry with you. Quilter on Fire is now on YouTube, and it's packed with brand new weekly content. What's waiting for you? Fun and easy tutorials to follow, exciting unboxings, exclusive interviews with top quilters and artists at the biggest quilt shows like Houston and QuiltCon. If you love Quilter on Fire on the podcast, you're going to be blown away by our YouTube channel. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Quilter on Fire on YouTube today. Let's ignite your passion for quilting. Thank you for listening to the Quilter on Fire podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps me reach more quilters just like you, striving for that perfect quilty lifestyle. Click on those 5 stars and share what you loved most about today's episode. Don't forget to hit the follow button if you haven't already. With new episodes dropping weekly, you won't want to miss out on the inspiring stories and tips we have in store. Until next time, dream big and have fun in the studio with the Quilter on Fire.